Right. Okay. Well, let's move on. And Vanessa Beeley is in Iran this week and next week. Well, she sent us over some video and a little report here. Now we're going to show the report on the British Embassy because the question in my mind, Patrick, has been, what awareness is there within Iran about the activities of foreign agents in the country and so on. So let's just have a look at the British Embassy and Vanessa's report here.
So on my first day in Tehran, we visited the British Embassy, which has been, as you can see, daubed in graffiti the entire length of the security wall around the embassy.
So the number on the column here, it's 120. It's the hour that they murdered General Soleimani. That's when they assassinated him. And here, the writing, it says, "Be vaqt Haj Qasem." This was the time they martyred him. And basically, here we are taking it back. And here it says, so it's kind of like a poem that would take revenge and calling the British spies, basically. And then the long one here, it says قطع رابطه با استعمارگران, which means cut ties with the colonialists, with the imperialists. And here it says Salam bar Shahidan, saying salutes to the martyrs, basically. This is لانه تجزیه طلبان. So the American embassy was called the den of espionage, and this is being called the den of the separatists. And it's down with the British, down with England. So it says Rubahe Pier. They have called for many years, they've called the British the old fox, because for many years it has been coming up with ways to destroy nations. And then there's a hashtag Haj Qasem, which is the name of Commander Soleimani. And the white one says, get out of my country. So here it says your history is dripping with blood. And then it says basically you're criminals. Yeah, don't film the rest. Yeah, you can film here. Film the door. Yeah. So this has the name of the British spy who was working with MI6, but he was working in some high levels of the country, basically, and he was executed. And they wrote his name here, Ali Reza Akbari, who was with the MI6. And then the rest of it is just down with Britain, down with England, and
when I was filming the graffiti, I guess the security guy opened the side door to see what was going on. So I told him, no, it's fine, I'm British. So he closed the door again and let me continue filming, assuming, I guess, that I was outraged by the graffiti. Actually, my team who are with me, including the translator, she originally said to me, I don't really agree with this. We should provide security as a country for the foreign embassies that are here, or we should not allow the embassies to exist inside Iran. Then she actually heard the story, which was told to us by a few people, that the British embassy was actually responsible for paying protesters in Tehran to paint graffiti on all the walls of Tehran, criticizing the Iranian government and leadership. So then her reaction changed to the extent that, if Britain, as per normal, is interfering in our state affairs, and the interference by the UK, by MI6, goes back decades, if not longer. And one interesting point, one of the graffiti says Iranian Holocaust. Now, I didn't actually know about this, but in 1917 to 1919, Britain was responsible for mass starvation, famine in Iran, and a huge percentage of the population died during this time. Not only from starvation, but also from the actions of the British. So Britain, as I said, has a very long history of interference in Iranian state affairs, including, of course, in 1953, the coup against President Mossadegh, who was trying to nationalize Iranian oil and to get it out of the grasp of the Iranian British oil companies, of course, predominantly managed by the British. And this has also repercussions now, at this time in Iran, that Britain is again fomenting protests and demonstrations against the government because, of course, what does Britain want? It wants to reinstate the son of the Shah, who was deposed, of course, in the 1979 revolution, because for Britain particularly, this would mean that, again, they have a chance at securing Iranian oil resources.
So clearly there is an element within the Iranian population that is aware of British interference. US as well. I'm not singling Britain out particularly here, but that it was the British embassy that we were looking at there.
More than an element.
Well,
more than an element.
One of the things that Vanessa has said to me is, and we'll have more from Vanessa on Monday, but one of the things that she said to me is that the feeling she gets from being in Iran now compared to the last time she was there, I think, which was 2016, 2017, something like that, the country has changed, that it's a lot more fractious than it was. And she gets the feeling it feels to her a lot like Syria felt before 2011. Mm-hmm. And I think that was a particularly worrying comment from her because with what is clearly Western interference in the country, the opportunity to foment a Syria type internal conflict is there, and that I think would be really sad.
Well, the whole point of fomenting instability in a country, whether it's Syria or Iran, is you need to attack the country economically first, and you need to attack its agriculture, its import-export. You need to really tighten the screws to create a vice grip on society in the country. That's what happened in Syria. That created the conditions where you have pockets of discontent. And then they open up for, ask for Western help and sponsorship, whether it be political, financial, weapons, fighters, and things like that. And that sort of started the ball rolling in Syria. But it couldn't sustain with the domestic opposition, so they needed then foreign fighters to come in.
Right.
Iran is not Syria in that sense. It's much more secure. It has a much more robust military. There are some issues that can be exploited. Certainly the West, the U.S. and Britain tried to exploit the hijab protest in September and tried to make that sort of their green revolution, as it were, for 2022. But it sort of fizzled out. And the reason it fizzled out is because that issue has been developing over a few years in Iran. So there are women uncovered in different parts of the country, and they're having that national dialogue anyway. It's just that the West really focused on that and made it that the big media story. But it is interesting. She brings up a lot of interesting points. And Operation Ajax, of course, 1953.
Yeah.
Mohammad Mossadegh, the prime minister at the time, overthrown. So yeah, the people there don't forget. There's a museum in Tehran that's dedicated to the Iran-Iraq War, and they know exactly who was backing who in that, and the casualties they sustained as a country are huge, much more than Vietnam on both sides, especially Iran. They lost more people than Iraq did, and that was in the 80s. So that's still fresh in a lot. So older generation were involved in that, still fresh in their minds, and it occupies a big part of the national psyche, but also in terms of how their geopolitics are oriented, and the Islamic Revolution as well. So it's not an easy nut to crack for the Western imperialists. Iran has always been very stubborn and very fortified in many different ways.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. As I say, more from Vanessa on Monday. So look forward to